Welcome to Inside Scoop Live, the podcast where indie authors get personal, sharing insights about their books, their writing journeys, and their passions. I'm your host, Sherry Hoyt, and I invite you to join me for engaging conversations with both debut indie authors and seasoned veterans. Whether you're looking for your next great read or a bit of inspiration, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Well, hi everyone. Glenn Taylor joins the show today to talk about his debut short story collection, The Book of Lost Innocence. It's a collection of 9 dark fairy tale and folklore-inspired stories where characters face harsh realities and none of them walk away unscathed. Before we get started, here's the inside scoop on the author. Glenn Taylor is a writer, creator, and novelist. He co-wrote 40 Acres with R.T. Thorne, a post-apocalyptic film that premiered at TIFF 2024 and earned praise from The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and Playback. Starting out in animation and comics, Glenn shifted into design, becoming a creative director and business owner, but he never stopped writing. He published his debut book, The Book of Lost Innocence, the same year 40 Acres hit theaters. The book has won multiple awards, including the Independent Press Award and the Reader Views Awards in 4 different categories, while 40 Acres earned a Canadian Screen Awards nomination for Best Original Screenplay. Glenn writes across genres but gravitates toward science fiction and fantasy, and you can learn more about Glenn Taylor and his work at andthenwhathappened.net. Well, hi Glenn, welcome to Inside Scoop Live.
Hi, how are you?
Great. I'm excited to talk to you today and learn more about your book. To get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your collection, The Book of Lost Innocence, what it's about, and maybe what your inspiration was behind writing it?
Sure. The Book of Lost Innocence is a collection of 9 stories. They're all kind of like dark fairy tale type folklore / mythological stories that I put together. Unfortunately, they all have bad endings, which I think is the entire premise of the actual book itself. The reason why I did that was because I think at the time that I was thinking about this, I just wanted to do a good, fairy tale / folklore stories. And I know some of the fairy tales out there right now, they actually have bad endings, the original ones, not the Disney-fied versions. But I think I wanted the theme to be around just bad endings, like sad endings, bad endings, any type of ending, I think, that didn't have kind of the hero winning at the end type of thing. And I think that I was just kind of interested in trying to write something like that. And I think I had these 9 stories that kind of related to that.
Right. Welcome to the dark side. Love it. Before we talk about your book in any kind of detail, I just have to say your cover is absolutely stunning. I just love it. Did you design that or have any kind of involvement? How did that cover come to be?
Oh, yeah. I worked with this illustrator named Jordan Luarissa. He's fantastic. I went through a bunch of different people who I thought might be able to kind of pull this off. I knew I wanted something, like really resonating and abstract and kind of have like different visual tells of the stories that were in the book. And I was a art director before this and a creative director. So I knew how to communicate properly with the artist for what I want. So I kind of relate to him what it is I think I wanted. And I think I had a vision in my head when he came back with the first design for this. He gave me 3 different options. And the first option I just fell in love with. So we kind of played with that one and he just really went at it. But I knew I wanted the darker colors, the reds, and some sort of like abstract vision of what this would look like. And he did a fantastic job. Like I loved it too. I thought it was a great cover.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you give an artist your vision and they come back and surpass it. That's a great artist. Now, tell us a little bit about the title as well. What does Lost Innocence mean across this collection of stories?
The Lost Innocence part is a lot of these characters do lose their innocence when they go through the trials that they actually go through. So it was the idea that you would go through, like the things that you go through, your life itself, anything you do, like your eyes are kind of lifted and you just see what the real world is like. So for this one is like they were losing their naivete, their innocence, their view. And it basically reflects on a few of these stories directly with a few of the people who think they know the world or they're kind of naive to the things that are happening within the world or even how they view the world. And then once they enter into their stories, then it starts to kind of like lift itself. And then all of a sudden,
Mm.
their innocence itself is lost to this because now they know what the harsh reality of the world is.
Yeah. Wow. You've got 9 short stories. Was there ever any thought to taking one of these stories and making it into a full-length novel, or did you just always have this short story collection in mind?
I think I always had the short story collection in mind. There is one that I wanted to expand into something more. That was like they had more of a Japanese theme to it, and it was a part of a love story that
Mm.
kind of course, ended tragically because they all do in this book. But I think I might have wanted to expand that a bit more. But originally, these are all made to be short stories. I started writing them one to test my writing chops, as it were, and to kind of experiment a bit, but also I did want to tell these smaller stories just to kind of get them out of there instead of like one big story for one of these things, because they all had something that I wanted to say. And I think by the end of it, I think I just said it all with all of them, to tell you the truth.
Oh, okay. Like, everything you wanted to say probably didn't seem like it would fit well into one story. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of like, for, as you know, for larger books, there's a lot of expanding on things
Yeah.
and different locations, but and you really need to, I guess, explore deeper into each character. But I think I was able to, hopefully, anyways, I think I was able to get into most of these characters' heads. And I think I was able to tell their full story within that short story format. Like I said, I think there's probably maybe only one that I think that could be expanded and we could really explore the world and how people live in it and maybe other characters. But the truth of the matter is, I think majority of these, there are only like a few characters that really mattered, and their situation that they were placed in was something that was just something that was uh, enough that like a bite-sized version of this was enough to basically tell everything and get the point across as well. And I guess the idea is, all since it was supposed to be folklore and folk tales and kind of written like fairy tale type stuff, then yeah, I also wanted to keep it short in that vein as well. So you know we're not telling like as if you could like relay this to somebody like orally. It was told to somebody orally or something over time, rather than
Right.
you know the Odyssey, for example.
Right. What is it that appeals to you writing the dark side? Like, for instance, a lot of your villains are understandable, which is, sometimes or somehow to readers could be even more threatening than just making their villains just outright dark and evil. What goes into building a villain like that people can almost relate to, and then all of a sudden they can't, you know what I'm saying?
Right. I think it's life. I've had like, surprisingly enough, I always say that I am a cynical optimist. So it's the idea that like there's a cynical nature to everything within the world. Like you're always looking at something, you always make this cynical view of it, but you're also hoping for the best. And with these characters and these villains, even, I think I approached them just as almost like just the other side of human nature. And I think within all these stories, I think it's human nature that takes over.
Mm.
Like there are people in the world who I think are just plain evil and strange, but the truth of the matter is we all contain some good and some bad and some of whatever else, and we just try to make our way through the world. I know some of the stories with some of the villains, we sometimes give an idea that a certain feeling is a bad feeling and a certain feeling is a good feeling. So what I ended up doing is just stripping that away and said, like, there's probably no good or bad to this actual feeling. It's just a feeling. So
Mm.
whoever benefits from it then is going to benefit from that. So for example, one of the stories is about love. And so is love a good thing or a bad thing? And then, do villains deserve love? And we find out in that story that maybe they do. It goes in the opposite direction. And love is just love. It's just not good or bad,
Yeah.
or even inherently for good people or inherently for bad people. But yeah, I wanted to basically tackle the humanity within some of these villains itself, and even some of the heroes who we will label them as heroes. Again, going back to the idea of the innocence and the naivete, that they also think they're doing good things sometimes, but sometimes it just is not a good thing. It's just it doesn't work out that way. To me, that's basically life. Life sometimes doesn't work out that way, and sometimes when you think you're doing the right thing, sometimes it's not, or sometimes it doesn't even matter.
Right, right. I like what you said about, maybe love is just love, and,
Yeah.
maybe everyone deserves love. Maybe nobody does, but
Exactly.
you don't think about it in those terms typically. So I like that, kind of putting that out there and letting
Mm.
readers just kind of go where they will.
Yeah.
So, of course, myth and folklore has been used to explain that darkness and the human nature you've been talking about. Why do you think that kind of, I keep going back to darkness. I need another
Mhm.
word, but why do you think that affects readers so differently than something like a straight horror or tragedy?
I think people look at like fairy tales, folklores, myths, all those things as something that's inherently already happened, or they can kind of look at them in like parables and kind of relate them to their own lives in some way, because they always take something from it, and usually they have like a decent story. But like with horror specifically, and I've tried writing horror too, and I think I'm going to continue to try writing horror as well. It's more along the lines of, you got an evil entity chasing you, or an evil entity destroying your world, and you have to do something about it, or you have to be constantly afraid of it, or something. In this case, usually with fairy tales, again, and folklore and things, like I think people can look back on them and then pull something out of them that will relate to their own lives versus, like Freddy Krueger chasing you in a dream. I don't know what you pull from that.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think that, myth, folklore, it's not real, but but they feel real, and that does make it scarier. There are consequences, and the point of horror is to be horrified. That's the point. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Most horrors don't have like a parable somehow embedded within the actual story itself. So
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you talk about how no happy endings and no perfect people here. A lot of the characters follow something they believe is good and righteous, but they end up something, it goes wrong. This trap shows up more than once in your stories. What keeps pulling you back to that?
I think it's the idea that they think they know what the right thing to do is, or they think they know what good is, or they think they know what's best for them or best for society. But when it actually is implemented, now they understand that things can go wrong. Okay, well, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. And there's always consequences with that, especially when you have absolute hubris,
Mm,
which some of them did, especially in one where her hubris was she thought she was doing the right thing, and she just went and did it, and then that turned out horribly wrong for her and for everybody else. So it was in the story Dread. She thought she was literally slaying a monster, but instead she didn't even listen or even believe what she was seeing. Like, she was presented something that was different than what she believed it was, and instead of following what she saw in her own gut, she still went back to what she thought she needed to do.
mm.
So basically, she didn't even listen to herself, and she kept going in the wrong direction. And I think that's something we, as humans, also do. Like,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of that going on.
oh yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Like, we will be presented with something that we're like, oh, I can see this, and I hear this, and people are telling me this, and you should do this, but then you'll still go with the wrong choice only because you had a preconceived notion of what it should be, and then that one has to be the right one because that's what you've been believing all this time.
Yeah.
So even if you're presented with a new choice, sometimes you just stick to your old. It's basically you sticking to your guns, even when the gun's gonna shoot you in the head. That's the best way to put it.
That's a great
So
way.
yeah, so I do like the idea that in some of these stories, like, it's that idea that we are presented new information, but we still inherently hold on to what we believed before, what we were thinking before, even when the new information is telling us something completely different.
Yeah. We're just crazy like that.
Yeah, yeah, we are definitely irrational, even the ones that that say that we are completely rational. But again, like, the story is just about humans. Like, we are complex. We are, both good, bad, sad, happy. Like, we go through different things in life. Nothing we do is perfect. I'm on the thing where some of them are trying to create a perfect society, but you can't create a perfect society because you yourself are not perfect. So you're reaching out for something that'll never happen just because you're not that thing. So how are you supposed to, like, achieve it?
Right. To me, it usually turns out to be dystopian.
Yes, it does. It goes it goes horribly wrong and becomes dystopian because we always think we know the right things, or we're doing the right things, or we're doing the perfect thing, but we are not that, and we are human. And I think when we forget that, that's when things go horribly wrong.
Right. Yeah. Now, this is your debut collection,
Mhm.
and some of the stories are, what, a decade old? Is that correct?
Yeah, about 6 of them are probably about a decade old, and then 3 of them are new, and I had another one, I had a 10th, but I took it out because it was horrible. And I honestly could not figure out how to fix it or what it was even about anymore, and I was like, "You know what? Let's just not use this one."
Okay. So it's interesting that, you started these stories all these years ago, but really didn't do anything with them. Life happens, probably,
Mhm.
and then you go back and okay, I've got these 6 stories and, they don't connect world wise or character wise or anything, but they all do have this common ground. At what point, I guess I'm asking, so you feel like 6 weren't enough and you had to go and kind of round out your collection, or how did all of it come together?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is I wanted to put out a book, to coincide with my, the movie that was coming out, and that was coming out in July, and I had limited time, and I was writing a different book, but it was not gonna be done. And I did feel like I needed more. I didn't think 6 was enough. And so when I did find those 6, I basically went through again and almost like, yeah, pretty much rewrote them again,
Mm,
but kept everything that was there. Like they were actually pretty good, but they weren't good enough. So I went through and rewrote them again, had them edited, but then I added 3 more. And again, like I said, I think it was actually 7, but the 7th one wasn't any good, and I couldn't salvage it. But then I wrote 3 more because I think I still had 3 more stories in me. I think I had a note about wanting to write more. So I found the ideas within myself and basically coming from other projects I was working on. And then I crafted these other 3 and I tossed those other 3 in there. And
yeah.
they fit really well with the rest of the stories, I thought. They were still hitting on the human aspects, and I thought they came out really well. And I think putting them all together, it actually worked out really well. I thought the book basically it rounded out the book generally well with 9 stories rather than just 6.
Right, right. I love how you said you pulled up these stories that you wrote, however many years ago, and they were pretty good. I mean, that says a lot to me about your writing, because a lot of people will, pull up their writing from 10 years ago. What in the world is this? So it sounds like you had a good base to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, like I've been writing for a long time, but also been a designer but I've always been in the creative space. And yeah, whenever I have an idea, I write it down. Whenever I have a story I think I want to write, I write it down. Whenever I think I'm going to write a different story, I write it down. So I always write things down anyways. So
Hmm.
I think when I come back to it later on, sometimes it's great and sometimes it's horrible. But
Yeah.
I always remember these ones as being something that I was really proud of at the time. And I think finding them again was probably the best thing because then I was like, oh, these are actually kind of really good. So at least to me. And then so I wrote them and I had some people read them and they're like, yeah, these are great. So I was like, okay, let's put these out there.
Yeah, let's do it. Now, you mentioned writing movies, or you wrote a movie. What's the main difference for you, and how did putting this collection together differ, good or bad?
The difference is I writing scripts is completely different from books for one. Like, and I enjoy writing books probably a bit more, only because I can get more information out there. I can write a lot more. I think there's a voice I like to add into it as best as I can. Like I do enjoy that because I also enjoy reading as well in that
Mhm.
sense. So it was a lot different because with the scripts, then I'm writing dialogue and I'm trying to get into the people's head the same way here, but the script itself is a lot shorter. And I have people that I work with that can help me out with that. But I think the difference is I feel like I have more freedom with writing the book, more leeway, and probably I get more words to describe things. And I can really get in depth on the atmosphere and the characters and whatnot. Versus if it's a script, you still kind of get some of those elements in there, but it's not that in depth. Eventually, it'll go to somebody else who's the director who will basically interpret and change and make things their own in that sense. So,
Yeah, and, maybe this is just because I mean, I love movies, don't get me wrong, but I
mhm.
love to read, of course, and I think for me, the books that go to film, I'm like, "It's missing so much." And so to me, it's almost like, don't read the book first?
Well, yeah, it's especially the books that are first person, where you're really in the head of that character
Yeah.
and you're following them along. You know what they're thinking, and sometimes when these movies get reinterpreted, reimagined, then some of those things have to go because it doesn't work. Like books and movies don't work the same way that they should, right? I think some people do great with adapting the books, and some people don't. I think it just depends on the I'd say the skill level of the person who's doing it, but also I think the passion that they have for the actual book itself, like the material that somebody else crafted, and not even just the passion, but also they love it and they respect it, and they respect that craft. They respect the person who wrote it. And I think
Right.
once those people are there, I think they can really find their voice that they need to for the movie. So it's a good interpretation of the actual book itself.
Mm-hmm. The Book of Lost Innocence, it's not exactly a beach read. Or I guess it could be, I don't know, stormy beach. But what kind of reader do you think finds their way to a book like yours?
I think somebody who hopefully just is also is a little cynical like me, but who just likes a kind of a dark read. I can never tell you exactly the exact person because I can never figure out who will love what.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anybody can really say who will love what when it finally gets out there. But I would say they're probably got a cynical view. They probably have like a good sense of humor on these things as well. People who kind of love fantasies in that sense, like to immerse themselves in the world, but also people I think who like characters, like deep characters and how they're thinking and the complexity of these characters as well. And, how they navigate the world and what they get out of it and what they do.
Right.
That's kind of who I imagine it to be for. And hopefully that's who's finding it. And that'd be amazing. If more people found it, that'd be great.
Yeah. And another thing about short stories is some people are drawn to short stories because, they can do this like bite-sized reading, they
Mhm.
don't have to, oh, what did I read? Did I read that chapter last night? And I've got to reread it. You don't have any of that. You get to just read a story, dwell on it, or go on to the next, but it's a different experience.
I think so. I think so. And I think that's the one cool thing about the short stories is you can read one in one go and basically put it down and then come back to it later.
Right. Right. So tell us what's next for you. Do you have another project in mind? You're a creative, so I'm sure you have many. But
Yeah.
what are your
Yeah.
plans?
So I'm currently I finished a manuscript for a sci-fi fantasy series, actually, as well as book 2 for it as well. But aside from that, yeah, which I'm looking to try and get published. But aside from that, I plan to probably do another book, which is more of a horror, I'd say. Like when we were talking about horror before, I wanted to do more of a horror book, so I might do that. And as well, I'm doing screenplays as I go on as well. But the idea of maybe doing another short story anthology, but I'll do this one with more happier endings. So kind of the antithesis to this one has crossed my mind. I just have to find the right stories, I think, to put into it to try and create something like this. And I'll name it something else, obviously, because
Right.
it could follow the Book of series, but maybe it'll be something else.
Right, right. Wow. Well, sounds like you're going to be busy for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope to be continuing busy and keep writing for years to come.
Yeah. Do you have a website where readers and listeners can learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, I do. It's actually it's and then what happened. So ANDTHENWHAT and then happen, which is HAPPENED. So the funny part about that is it's like like for each story, it's like the idea is like and then what happened, and then what happened, and then what happened.
I
So
love
like
that.
when you're writing a story, so that's why I decided to just create something and then what happened, and then basically market myself around that. So my name Glenn Taylor around and then what happened. So
Yeah.
yeah. So and it's .net actually at the end.
Okay. Okay. I love that. Yeah. And then what happened?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Glenn, is there anything else you wanted to add today?
Yeah, actually, like it's the first time writing and putting this out. I'm happy for the accolades that are associated with it. I want to say that I'm very blessed that people have read it and like it. I love writing. I probably will not stop writing. I think it brings me joy, and I love creating new ideas and just building new worlds and hopefully making people entertained and happy to read them.
Yeah. Yeah. Never stop chasing your joy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It was nice talking with you.
Thank you. You too, Sherry.
Thank you so much for joining me today for my conversation with Glenn Taylor, author of the Book of Lost Innocence. You can learn more about the author and his work at andthenwhathappened.net. And be sure to check out our other interviews at InsideScoopLive, bookoflost.com.